Welcome into Rounding the Bases.
Round the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.
Hey everybody, welcome into another episode of Rounding the Bases, presented by Community America Credit Union, invested in you. A shout out to my friends right here in Kansas City. My guest is not, by the way, in Kansas City. You don't have to be, but if you're in the market for a job or you're looking to hire someone or just a great resource, check out my friends at Chief of Staff Kansas City. You can be nationwide to be able to do that as well. Just they believe in culture and people, and that's why I love to align with them. chiefofstaffkc.com, making connections that matter. My guest today has amplified what's possible for accomplished women that refuse to settle. Her name is Viveka von Rosen, a social media authority, business strategist, and founder of Beyond the Dream Board, who has catalyzed countless reinventions from executive to entrepreneur. By blending hard-earned wisdom with modern technology, she empowers women in their 50s, 60s, and beyond to relaunch careers built for the person they're becoming, not the one they've already been. Legacy only calls once. When it does, be sure to answer with your whole voice. And here to talk about that and much more today is my friend Viveka. And I believe, if I remember correctly, it was our mutual friend, Howie Fleischer, that connected us. And so happy right now to be joined by Viveka. How are you?
I am good. Yeah, I was just thinking Howie is just such a connector. He's such a great person. I love it. A perfect example of peopling.
Yeah, well, he is the definition of peopling, and that's who he is. He was born for that. I'm always happy when I remember who connected us, because sometimes you don't. But a Howie connection is always a good one, and I know you and I have gotten to know each other a little bit virtually over time. Yeah. First off, because this is a legitimate question for anyone, but certainly for you, where are you right now?
Yeah, so right now I'm in Colorado, in my house at Colorado. Yeah, Loveland, Colorado. The land of love.
The land of love. The love land, the land of love. So much to talk about, and I'm glad that you are kicking off our podcasts in Women's History Month. I was telling you that this is important for me from a representation standpoint. And I think so much about the work you're doing, and I think about some of the women that I wrote about in my second book, including my mom, who had similar stories from back in say the 60s, that they reinvented themselves later in their careers, if they even had the chance to have a careers.
Right.
You know, she did. She had a career in education as a teacher, because she was told that that's all she could do, teach or be a nurse. And then she became a stay-at-home mom. And eventually she reinvented herself and climbed the ranks and ended up in corporate America and in a leadership role, traveling the world that no one ever told her was possible. And so I wonder about the work that you're doing now, in part helping women maybe reinvent themselves and find something else out there at whatever stage of life they're in. Is the need to do that, or the desire to do that now, a sign of progress, lack of progress? I mean, my mom had to do it because there was never a choice. Is the deck, I guess what I'm asking, still stacked against women the way it was back then, or at least in some ways?
Yeah, I would say yes. And I'm sad to say yes, because I had a very strong mother and grandmother for that reason. Also, I was born and raised in Canada. And so I grew up thinking, well, of course I can do whatever I want. I think to some extent I did. And I was lucky early on in my career. And, I was so fortunate in the mentors that I had around me. And being younger, I didn't understand about the invisibility of being a woman over 50. And having been mostly an entrepreneur, I didn't understand about the fact that women don't get their receipts a lot of time in the boardroom until I was actually in that situation. And now, being a woman in my 50s, reinventing myself, and then working with a lot of women who are 50 plus, also reinventing themselves, the stories are pouring in. And I'm blown away at this time in our world that this is still an issue, that we get paid less. and I'll take some responsibility for that, and I think women should take some responsibility for that because we're not demanding our receipts. But that being said, like, how is this possible without getting into a political discussion?
Well, look, I'll go there briefly because I'm always hesitant on political discussions too, because I don't know who wants to talk politics. It just gets you in trouble. But I'll look, as we're recording this, not quite a month before it airs.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that by the time this airs, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, and here's a way for me to not make it political, because from what I could tell, there are people from all affiliations that are on that list doing those type of things. And all I keep thinking about is everybody trying to save themselves, having done something so awful and so unthinkable that I'm comfortable talking about it. One, my name's not on the list. I don't think I don't think I'm getting any phone calls. Two, I don't even know how that works. Yeah. But what I keep thinking about, and I know I'm going off on a tangent, but it's all going to come back to where we're going here. Yeah. What I keep thinking about and why I feel like it's safe, because this is not political. This is decency. This is common sense, is that this is a bunch of very wealthy men that have always been able to be protected. And if they want to do some things that are bad, there is a very powerful circle involving money and reputation that will protect them across political lines. And so hasn't that really gone on since the beginning of time, unfortunately? Yeah,
it really has. And, you keep seeing the memes like, why do we even need the Epstein files? Can't we just trust the women? Can't we just believe the women? And then we get the Epstein files and they're completely redacted, except for exposing the women. And I'm like, isn't this just yet another example of the abuses that continue to go on at every level? And it's disheartening. And again, I never would have believed in my Canadian idealized upbringing that something like this would be allowed to continue on and on and on and on. And yet here we are.
Yeah. The reason why I brought it up is just that there are a million other things that I'd rather talk about and you'd probably rather talk about. And there are plenty of other places that you could listen to the Epstein. Hey, again, maybe it's all been solved by the time this thing airs. We know that's not going to be true. There's no way. But and when it's not this, it'll be the next thing. I guess the point is that the deck has always been stacked to favor anyone that is in power and comfortable. And that typically has been white men. It's not always that. Look, there are some women that are up on top there too, that could be a part of some things. As a matter of fact, Epstein has a pretty strong accomplice that.
I was going to say, if
that is a woman, had an accomplice, she's still alive. But, I think about this a lot, Viveka, in many different ways. Like in sports, I remember growing up, it was a big deal. Doug Williams was the winning quarterback in the Super Bowl at the time, the Washington Redskins. And it was so highly celebrated that a black quarterback won the Super Bowl and I think was MVP. And at that point, it was like there was this terrible racist bias that if you're a black quarterback, you're not smart enough to be the quarterback. Now, I don't know what the number is, but I think it's well over 50%, maybe 60%, whatever it is. Like you wouldn't think twice about it. You could look in any big game and both quarterbacks are men of color, and that's just, you don't think twice about it. With women, same thing in my profession. You're seeing more women. They've been on the sidelines, which is a role that I have for years. Now they're starting to get into the broadcast booth. Now they're starting to be able to do some roles. And instead of it being like, oh, what is she doing here? Because people were programmed for that. You don't think twice about it. So I see progress in that type of stuff. Yet it still seems like it's a really massive fight to get there and to prove yourself. And men don't have, look, we all have to prove ourselves. All right. I have to prove myself that I'm good enough for my job, and then I'm going to treat people right, and on and on and on and on and on. But as I so often say on this podcast, when it comes to race, when it comes to gender, some people, based on the way they look or the way they were born or whatever it is, have to climb a steeper hill than others. And the hill I know is still steep for women. And so when I talk about that on the broadcast side, I'm guessing that kind of is reflected in corporate America and in the C-suite and in the boardroom as well. Is it not, in terms of, yes, we are seeing more, not just this year, but in recent years, but yet it's still a challenge. How much of a challenge is it? What are women at the highest level dealing with?
Yeah, it's such a good point. When I think about women in their 50s, 60s, 70s now, and they got into the workspace in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? And so, I mean, I remember even as little as I played in that world, we had to put on what I called the Teflon business suit. I think of the Grace Jones, like with the big shoulder pads. And, we really had to fit ourselves into this masculine model. And I think that still plays out, unless it's a woman-run business with a lot of women in the executive office. I think we're still playing in the male model, and it's really hard to express authentically in that space. And then a lot of times, especially as we get older, if you're not following the party line, your voice gets suppressed. And my friend Cynthia talks about this a lot. And you hear it all the time. You're like, oh, surely that's not the case. Like, I'm sure women are making this up. But in the boardroom, a woman will have an idea and the man will get the credit for it. And she's a African-American woman. So yeah, like as a Black woman, she talks about, you got to get your receipts. You got to get your proofs. It's all well and good for your ideas to get acted on, but not if you're not getting the receipts, right? And so that just keeps coming up for me in my conversations with the women that I'm having is we've got to get our receipts. And a lot of women are either, they're retirement age, so they're naturally wanting to leave the workspace, or they're getting squeezed out because of what's happening in the world right now, or it just doesn't fit anymore. And that was my case, right? It just didn't fit anymore. And I like had to leave. I had this imperative. I had to get out of there. And so for whatever reason, the great thing about entrepreneurship is there's no one telling you that your voice is not worth being heard. Well, okay, that's not entirely true. There's the whole world and culture. However,
other than that,
you still get to say your piece, and you still get to speak out amongst the many different platforms. And depending on the algorithms, you get to be heard.
Well, let's talk a little bit. I mean, the work that you're doing is, and I'll get more into that in a bit, but how did you get here? Because you've had your changes and your awakenings, I guess, so to speak, and now helping so many others with it. But tell me about the early steps. How did it start, and how did you end up here?
Yeah. So, back in 2006, how much detail do I want to go into? Back in 2006, actually 2005, I was introduced to LinkedIn. And at the time I was running basically a co-share space. And I thought, oh, how cool is this? There's 7 million people on this network. And what a great opportunity for me to do networking, business networking. And I just dove in deeper and deeper and deeper. And part of it was intuition, part of it was timing, part of it was luck. But I really went down that path of LinkedIn and then social media. I was fortunate to get a book deal, that they came to me. Wiley came to me and said, hey, will you write a book for us? I was fortunate to be at the beginning of this, of back then, bleeding edge of social media and technology. And so I was invited to speak at a lot of different events. And actually it was a pretty easy play. I mean, it was a really easy play for me. And, I got the moniker LinkedIn expert pretty early, and then I had to prove it was true. And I really, really enjoyed that for about 10 years. Loved what I was doing for about 10 years. And then I kind of got bored with it. And obviously social media changed. And by 2017, I didn't love it anymore. And so then I had the opportunity of co-founding a different type of business. I thought this was going to be my exit plan. A lot of things went right. A lot of things went wrong. But Back in 2023, I realized again, like this Teflon suit does not fit and it's time for me to break free. And that's when I went, you know what? I really just want to be working with women and helping them find their voice in the world, because at that point I was like, oh, our voices are being muted. Oh, maybe I can help women get their voices out there in whatever way, shape, or form that looks like.
I'm curious too. I mean, as I look at your website, beyondthedreamboard.com, and the offerings that you have, one, I'm like, well, how can I go? I can't for women, but how cool. Like, I think what really stands out to me here is that for all the women that would be interested in working with you, and as an executive coach, there are a lot of unique options and offerings. I mean, you want a day, you can do a day. You want to come out and do a retreat in Loveland, Colorado. Seems like actually a pretty affordable deal for a one-day tech retreat. You want to spend a little bit of money and go somewhere really cool. Oh, by the way, Viveka spends a lot of time in Costa Rica and lives there part of the time. You could go on a cool tech in the tropics retreat. I'm guessing, and I think I have a pretty good idea on this, that all of these options and the different people you're meeting and the impact you're having have completely energized you at this stage of your life. I'll say our life because I'm, same age range as you too.
Exactly.
And I love this age right now. And I'm wondering what you're getting out of this as you're giving so much.
For me, it's the women I'm working with. I do some one-on-one, and those women are they're finding their voice in a new way. They're finding their power in a new way. They're excelling in ways that I'm not even excelling in. And it's so gratifying for me. I had just like a 10-minute check-in with one of my clients the other day, and she's tripling her income, going from $8,000 to $22,000 a month, just by following her brilliance, not to get too woo-woo, but it's so gratifying for me, because again, the things that these women are doing, I've got a realtor who, again, she's just, what she is doing in the world of real estate is game changing. And she wasn't trusting her voice. And now she is. And I mean, her success is fantastic to watch and to be a part of. So for me, I sit in awe every day of these women that I get to work with. And the fact that they look up to me and reach out to me and say I've been pivotal in their growth is just humbling and an incredible honor. It's so exciting. And then, to a smaller extent, I've got these collaboratives where, more women come in. And then I'm so excited because I'm a geek. I'm such a tech geek, and I love the world of technology. And I love disappearing down those rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And when I find something that can actually move the needle, I get to introduce that technology or someone who can speak to that technology to my women. And it's so cool to see them getting excited too. It's very exciting. And then to be able to do that in person through the retreats, either in Costa Rica or at my house in Colorado, that adds just such a different level. And it's not about making enormous amounts of money. It's pretty hard to make enormous amounts of money doing what I'm doing the way I'm doing it right now. But I mean, I do okay. Don't get me wrong. We just got back from 2 months in Europe, but it's not about making billions of dollars and leaving monuments everywhere. It's about, for me personally, my legacy is helping other women create and leave their legacies. And so being able to do that's just an honor and a privilege.
I think about this a lot, actually, that the women that you're working with right now, I mean, I haven't been thinking about it like in terms of every day, like the women that Viveka, but I mean, just like in general, that'd be weird. But
are you obsessed with me, Joel?
Yeah, I can't. I've been stalking. No, but other than we're in the same age, range, and I think that we have opportunities to make impact, and really, like it's so uplifting to be able to find these things. But no, I've been thinking about it from this standpoint, that women my age, my wife's age. Oh, she says she's much, much younger than me, by the way. But truth be told, she's 2 years younger. But anyway, hopefully she's not listening. But I just wonder, like, with the progress or the lack thereof, and I think it's both, but the next generation of women, the millennials, you may not be working with them per se. They'll be knocking on the door, getting closer to 50s at some point. And I hope and think the world will look a little better from them. And then Gen Z after them. My point is that those women did not deal with the same level, I don't think, of sexism and misogyny and what was for my mom's generation, this is just the way it is. And then I think for our generation, there started to be like, hey, maybe we could push back a little bit. And so I just wonder if you have a thought of what the next generations are going to have, while also not wanting to be naive here. They're still going to deal with stuff. They still deal with stuff right now. I hear it. They tell me. I understand it. There's still microaggressions every single day. Yet I believe that the next generation, let me flip the tables a little bit. The next generation of men, the millennials, and then the Gen Z, it's not abnormal for them to have a female boss. It's not abnormal for them to see a female CEO. So the expectations, I hope, change a little bit, like I talked about with, a black quarterback before. Wait a minute, what's the big deal? This is just what we do. Do you see that moving in that direction?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of my favorite mentees, she's in her early 30s, and she had to break away from a marketing job where her male boss was essentially not allowing her to grow in the way she could. And so she left and she started her own business. And again, within just a few months, matched her income and then has now exploded. So it's it. And a couple other, I do have some millennial clients. Same. I mean, they are still working in businesses where their voice and their strengths are getting thwarted. And I'm like, no. Yeah. That being said, I think things are shifting. I hope things are shifting. And I just don't think the Gen Z women are going to take it. And I've got a couple interns, Gen Z and interns, and they're just powerful young women. They are just powerful young women. And I have hope for the future when I see women like that. And as women's power rises, we see, we see the backlash. I mean, we see the backlash every day. Yeah. Yeah. And then we see women promoted to positions where it looks like they have a voice. And yet here they are just parroting the male voice. So it's just, I don't know. Yeah. I don't want to be a pessimist, but I don't see things changing as much as I thought they had and as quickly as I thought they would. And I have hope because I think our Gen Z are not going to put up with it. Yeah. I hope.
I think across the board with anything related to this, meaning racism, sexism, on and on, right?
All the isms.
All the isms, ageism, all of it. That
all of it.
If you got an ISM at the end, it's probably not good. But
exactly.
But it's because this has gone on since the beginning of time. That progress is never linear. It makes sense to me that it should be, but at least in terms of this, and every step along the way, because of a lack of comfort, I guess, discomfort in, people are comfortable with the status quo. They just are. I mean, people are comfortable with the status quo. And so if people are comfortable with the status quo because change could be hard, and that also happens to benefit people in power who are going to make sure it stays that way, it stays that way. And so when there's progress, what happens? This is why we go one step back or two steps back. Exactly. And so it's disheartening, right? I mean, we take two steps back and then you take one step forward. And so inch by inch, you start going there. It shouldn't be this way. But what do you tell women that are, look, I think when they can go out there and do their own thing and just remove themselves from that structure. You've already talked about it, the amount of money, the abilities to go, but they should be able to be within the structure and do what they're doing with equal pay and all those types of things as well. What are you advising those women that are battling that uphill climb?
Yeah, a couple of my women, they tried to go in and create their own business, and it just was not happening for them. So they went back into corporate life. But that experience, they found their voice. And they moved back into corporate, into positions where they made sure that their voices were heard. And I think it's really, it's not the area I work in. I really do prefer working with entrepreneurs, and there are phenomenal consultants out there and coaches who work with women within the corporate structure. And honestly, that is probably just as much, if not more so, needed in order to change what's going on in the world. We have to affect change from within. My friend Ronelle, she's phenomenal in the work that she's doing with men and women at these top levels to try and change the voice and change the culture. But it is the metaphor of voice. It comes back to that. I had a dream the other day. I won't go into it because dreams are creepy and weird and no one cares about them except for the person talking about them. But I had this dream where I was just screaming and like unceasingly. I don't know where the breath came from, just this scream. And then all of these other women joined in with the scream. And as we were all screaming unceasingly, there was a shift. I could literally feel it in my body. And this universal shift. And I think that, to me, that's what that was, again, just a metaphor for our voices need to be heard. And, you think about AI, it's interesting, not to go down a geek rabbit hole too much.
No, please do. It's a great geek rabbit hole.
LinkedIn just recently changed its algorithm to something called 360 Brew. So it's an AI-based algorithm now. And it happened about March of 2025 is when they launched it. I think it betaed out a little bit earlier than that. But interestingly enough, a lot of the women that I work with and a lot of the women that I'm in community with, their stats just plummeted, mine included, right? And I thought it was because when I made the shift from corporate, when I made my pivot, LinkedIn didn't like it. I just thought, well, LinkedIn doesn't like people to pivot. Actually, in small part, that was true. But what really happened was LinkedIn has an AI algorithm. It has completely changed how it looks at profiles, engagement, posting, its networks, et cetera. And so where it used to be based on signals, just how likes, shares, comments, et cetera, dwell time, things like that on people's posts, it is now working in these mini sessions and looking at a person's profile and how clear is that profile, and then looking at a person's post and how clear is that post, and looking at a person's network and is it aligned to their posting, and looking at their engagement and how aligned and coherent is that. Well, the thing is, for men too, for sure, in their 50s and 60s, but especially for women, we have had such varied careers, and we might still be working in one thing but launching another, and there's a lack of coherence there, at least according to the AI algorithm. Plus, it's AI, so it's getting informed by 35-year-old white males, and it's getting informed by the massive content out there, which is not created by 60-plus-year-old women. And so there's literally been a dampening of voices because of AI. Now, I love AI. I use it every day. I'm so grateful for it. It has made such a difference in my business. And when we're looking at things like deep research and we're looking at AI informing something as massive as, LinkedIn at 1 billion users, it is going to have a negative effect on women over 50. Mm-hmm. And so, it's a true life example of what I've been speaking about metaphorically.
Yeah. And in real time, the deck remains stacked. Whether intentionally or not, or maybe it's just based on representation of who.
Yeah, I think it's just representation. I don't think it's intentional. I don't think there's anything nefarious about, 360 Brew. And and it's happening, and there's things we have to do to combat it.
So how do you combat that before I get to my baseball themed questions?
Yes. Clarity and coherence. And so it's a lot of going back into start with your profile, go into your profile, look at the headline, look at the about section, especially the first, paragraph or so, look at your experience sections, make it a coherent story. You can't serve you can't be a Jack or a Jackie of all trades, right? You can't. Jackie's one of my millennials. You can't be a Jackie or a Jack of all trades. You have to have a very clear audience. You have to have a very clear offer. And you need to make sure that that audience and that offer is what your whole LinkedIn profile is focused on, down to the content you feature on it, down to the skills that you have listed, down to the projects. And so there's a lot of decluttering. I'm like, you have to go Marie Kondo, your LinkedIn profile. You gotta streamline it. You got to delete things that are no longer relevant. You have to delete connections that are no longer relevant, which is so fun for me. I'm down to 20,000 and I got about another 10,000 I need to clear out of there. But yeah, you gotta clean up your network, and you've got to make sure that the people and the content that you're engaging with, again, is aligned with your audience. Once you start doing that, though, and again, this is just experimental and experiential, but for myself and certainly for my clients who are now have taken these actions, their visibility is starting to increase 2x or more. So, there is a way.
Yeah. And of course, with the algorithms, there'll be an adjustment again whenever the next one comes. And that's just part of playing the game,
exactly.
Right? Which is fun for some people. And by the way, to have a label or self-label of tech geek, I think is a good thing. But
yeah, I know. I love it. I always have been a bit of it.
I'll never be the expert. I'll never be the highest level of what's the word? Geekdom, geekiness. I don't know.
Geekiness.
But it's a fun rabbit hole to go down.
It is a fun rabbit hole for sure. Yeah,
I enjoy it because you're constantly learning and it's never enough. By the way, like I need more. So
yeah. No, exactly.
Whole different discussion on AI and tech, which actually I might have one question left on that in my final four. But let's get to the baseball themed questions. And
yes,
you've done a lot. You're doing a lot. You're going to do a lot more. What's the biggest home run that you have hit in your professional career?
I think from the outside looking in, most people would say that my time as a LinkedIn expert was my biggest professional home run. Like I said, being an early adopter of social media, teaching LinkedIn in its infancy, the book deals, the international speaking career, being able to work with and impact so many professionals growing their business. I mean, that was huge. It was definitely huge for me. But I think what really was the home run was I trusted my intuition early. I followed, like I said, what genuinely energized me. And I had the courage, to build something before there was a clear roadmap. No one even knew what social, most of my classes back in the day was teaching what is social media and then how do you use it? It was crazy. But I think it's that willingness to listen to my instincts and to take those risks that created the results that they did. And that, if I look back, has been pretty consistent across my career, being able to see change coming early and then really take something that's kind of complex, or at least appears complex, and make that clear for people so that they don't feel overwhelmed or left behind or just give up. And that's really what I'm doing with my women today too.
Yeah. It's a great home run. And you've talked about LinkedIn a lot. I guess when you're internationally known as the LinkedIn expert, that's a home run.
They keep pulling me back in.
They keep pulling you back. But that's how other people will see you, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
But I love the home run there. How about a swing and a miss along the way, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, it's funny because, again, from the outside, it's like, oh, that wasn't a miss. But when I co-founded Vengresso, it looked like a home run because we were financially successful. We grew the business really quickly. It helped that we were, teaching digital selling during COVID. But for me, it was a miss because I was moving further away from the work that was meaningful to me, and that really reflected my voice and strength. And ironically, my title is Chief Visibility Officer, but I became less and less visible, and my voice became less and less heard. So, I mean, for me, the miss was I was out of alignment, and the win in that was that I learned my intuition wasn't a nice to have. Like, it is a super strategic asset that I absolutely have to follow. And again, the swing and the miss was Vengresso wasn't a miss, but I stayed too long, trying to chase after what I thought I was, the exit strategy, the retirement plan, it was nice making that much money, not gonna lie. But it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it in the long run for me.
All right, that's a good one. How about small ball? The little things that add up to big results. What's small ball to you?
Yeah, and not to get too woo woo, but it's the morning journaling, it's the meditation, it's the actions that build up my intuition, because that really is the only thing I have to go by. Because if we've not learned anything, we've learned that all of this out here is not real. And there is no truth, and there is no reality. And if we're gonna be successful for whatever we call success, right? It comes from within, and we got to trust from within. And the other thing we talked about at the very beginning was peopling, which is for me simply whenever someone pops into my mind, like I'll call them. Sometimes I'll get lazy and text, but I'll call them, and those conversations inevitably lead to something that move me forward in my life or work, or move them forward in life or work. And I noticed, like I said, we were in Europe for 7 weeks, and just because we were in Europe and the time zones were wacky, I wasn't peopling because I wasn't sleeping well, and again, time zone. I wasn't journaling. I wasn't and man, I just felt misaligned, and it took me a while to get back into my practices, and now I'm feeling more coherent and more cohesive. But yeah, those small balls, like, I got to do them, right, to stay grounded, responsive, and effective.
It's really interesting that you say just some synergy here, because that's kind of become my small ball in the last year or so. The journaling, not so much. I haven't found the ability to repeat that, even if I'm typing it into my phone, because I can't read my handwriting. But
yeah.
But the morning meditation.
Yep.
If for some reason I'm running late or whatever, it's still has to be at least 5 minutes, but typically 10 to 15, and my day's better because of it. I feel it
every time.
And by the way, when I'm distracted, if I can't help it and I start scrolling a little too much, which I try not to do before I wake up, the meditation's never as good. When I'm watching too much news and my mind is on some of the junk that's going on in the world, I'm not as good. So it's just a reminder, going and unplugging for a month in December and living on the beach was like, I saw what the other side looked like. And, and then you get pulled back. It's hard not.
Yeah. It's tough. I what you said about journaling, and I get not everyone's a writer. I am, but not everyone is.
But the thing is I am a writer. I just don't know. I haven't been able to create this writing habit. But what a lot of people are starting to do now, which is interesting, and there's GPTs all over the place that help with this. My friend Maggie just created a really cool one. But also you could just do the verbal download. And what's been really interesting is I was at an event recently, and I can't even remember who the person was or what they were talking about, but we were talking about the 3 o'clock cortisol wake up. I think mostly women have it. I don't know about men, but we get it at 3 o'clock in the morning, menopause, I'm awake. And one of the ways of combating that is just earlier in the day, not right before you go to bed, but just go bleh, like just get on your and just turn your
audio on and just verbally get all of the complaints and the concerns and the worry and the thoughts and the things. And you can just leave it at that, or you can plug it into AI, which will make sense of it for you. But she was saying that when she does that, she doesn't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with the cortisol bump. Yeah. And so I've been doing it a couple days, and I'll be damned if it doesn't actually work.
I want to be careful here. I'll just say, I'm going to pass that story on to someone I know.
Yes. Please do.
I might get up at the 3 in the morning, I think. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. Let me get to the 4 final questions as we round the bases. And, you know, we always, and my executive producer, Ashley, does a great job of all my research. And some guests, you're one of them, have like, I look at it and I'm like, I could probably do 10 final questions. So that's you. So I got to figure out which 4 I want to do. I mean, when I start reading up and down the list here, just the charitable involvements are so unique. But then the awards, top 10 most influential women in social media, top
a long time ago,
2019, it's there with you forever. Top ranked blog, top 50, so on and on and on, right? LinkedIn, top 25. You've received all that. I understand what awards are. I understand what they're not, but you've been recognized, rightfully so, for all of that. But then there's just the unique interests and the background. You are the first ever countess or born a countess guest that I've ever had on this show. So there, I'm speaking to a noble woman here, at least in terms of the course of history. Can you explain this a little bit? Because if I understand it correctly, you were a countess until you got married. And I don't know if that's exactly how it works. And then I was also reading something that someone at one point said that you had a better chance of getting struck by lightning than ever getting married.
Yeah. Oh my God, Doug the Toad. So yes, my father was a count. It's interesting because one of the big things that we did when we were in Europe was we went back to the family homes, and by homes I mean big ass castles. And my husband absolutely, he's addicted to Ancestry.com. So he has been taking such a deep dive into my family history, my dad's side Swedish family history back to the 12th century. And I discovered, so I've been blaming him for losing my title, but I get to keep my title. But if we had children, so my husband doesn't get a title by being married to me. And if we'd had children, they would not have been titled. But technically I am still a countess. Also, I kept my last name better than his. So yes, you can should
have changed the introduction and
yes, Countess Viveka von Rosen. It's done so much for me in my life. Funny story though. My husband's son, one of his young friend, back when they were like 13, came over, and Alan, and I'm like, why is this kid not looking at me? Like, he was talking to me like this. Why is this kid not looking at me in the face? Like, why isn't he not looking at my eyes? And apparently Alan had told him that I was a countess, and he was not allowed to look at me in my.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, it's still a funny story to this day. It's
a tried and true tradition in the history of noblemen and noblewomen. You are not allowed to look them in the eye, I assume.
Not allowed to look at them in the face. You may look at me in the face. Yes. And then, Doug the Toad. So back when I was in my late 20s, I worked for this Canadian lawyer in Miami. All the bad things you think about. I have some lawyer friends who are amazing. Don't get me wrong. But anyway, when you think about like all the bad things lawyers are, he was one of them. And he literally told me, because I wasn't married at the time, I was living with my boyfriend / kind of fiance. But he basically told me that women had a better chance of getting hit by lightning than they did of getting married after they were 30. Oh. So I actually thought of him when I got married at 50 years old for the first time to my husband now. Like, 2 middle fingers to you, Doug.
Yeah. By the way, Doug is not the sign of progress. Anyway.
No, indeed. And he had the most phenomenal wife who he married for her money and who he cheated on the entire time. Like, he was probably in the Epstein files, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, if he's not, someone like him is. Well,
exactly.
Okay. All right, we'll move on. We'll move on from Doug. It was really just my way of weaving all this together with the story about the Countess. And now I'm glad to hear that you still technically are a Countess.
Yes, I am.
More importantly, you're married. But your
married.
husband just can't become a count, I guess.
Exactly. He's something he's got to live with.
He gets to go visit the castles. It's all.
And kiss the ring upon occasion.
And kiss the, yeah, well, I mean, we all should be doing that. So second question, as I round the bases, some people have interesting highlights. I was reading that you became a hang glider pilot at 15. Yeah. But I also read that you could do underwater basket weaving. Actually, I like what Ashley wrote here. Also do underwater basket weaving underwater as opposed to the overwater. Really? You can do that?
I could, technically. My mom was actually a nationally known basket weaver. She, after her whole education career, and she also moved through the ranks, etc. When she retired, she just loved creating, right? So she was a nationally, internationally known, I guess, basket weaver, taught basket weaving.
So cool.
And so I learned how to do that. Also, I'm a scuba diver. So I was thinking that would work out really well because the reeds would be wet. They would be malleable. Like that could be a whole thing, underwater basket weaving. It really could be. Maybe that's what I'll do next.
Yeah, I mean, you do strike me as a person that's always finding the next thing. And although it seems to me like you're really enjoying where you're at right now, you and your husband have spent a lot of time traveling through Europe. I know you're well traveled. Do you have a bucket list spot? Third question, or somewhere you either love so much you have to go back to, or somewhere that is on your list?
Well, I definitely need to go. I mean, I absolutely love New Zealand. I've been gifted the opportunity to speak there a few times, and I'd love to go back and just spend more time there. Really want to go diving around Malaysia, scuba diving around Malaysia. We haven't done that yet. And from everybody I talk to, it's just the most superb diving in the world. So that is most definitely on the bucket list.
All right, walk-off question, and everyone that wants to learn more about all of Viveka's work, beyond thedreamboard.com, you can learn about the podcast, Gray Matters. You can learn about whatever it is, LinkedIn, blog, books, the whole works. It's all there. Last question, I talked about it before. What in tech is most exciting to you right now?
All of it. I mean, it's such a hard answer. I'll say all of it. And then with the caveat that I'm loving Substack right now. I don't have a huge audience, but it feels to me like social media did back in 2006, 2007. It feels more clean and more pure. Yeah. So I'm just loving Substack right now.
I think that's a good point that you make too, because I was a little inspired when we first met to try to do a little bit more exploring on Substack. And then I think I wrote one thing and, nobody looked at it. And I let my ego get in the way. I'm like, whatever. But I remember you saying like, it's not, you're not going to get a lot of numbers on there, or maybe eventually you do. So I think just right. Just go right.
Just right. To get, and I think someone like you could kick butt on it. But this is a whole other show, but there's the posts, which is the long form articles that you probably wrote. But what's going to get you seen by the bigger audience is the notes that go along with the posts, and just the notes that you write, which is the shorter form. And so for you, being who you are and what you do, and the audience that you've already inspired, get those notes out there. And I think you'll start seeing more engagement.
We'll get there. Add it to the list, right?
Add it to the list. One more thing to do.
The LinkedIn facelift, and on and on and on. It never stops, but it's all good stuff.
I left you with lots of homework.
Yeah, well, that means you're challenging me, which is good. Viveka, keep up the great work. This is so much fun. Congrats on all the success and all the impact that you're making. And I look forward to continuing to follow and staying in touch. And thanks for spending time today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.